One of the most important purposes or reasons why we want to live an authentic Christian life is so that we can be authentic witnesses of the life of Christ and his incredible love for us. Now again, back to our theme verse, John 1 verse 4 and 5, which said, in him, in Christ is life, and his life is the light of the world. Remember, it's not our life that produces light. In fact, our life can't produce any light. It's the life of Christ that produces light. So when we live his life, his compassion, his love, his mercy, his forgiveness, his humility, when we become Christ-like and live the life of Christ, that becomes the light of the world. In John 9 verse 1 to 5, Jesus was talking to his disciples. They were on their way and they passed this man who is blind. And the disciples asked Jesus, Lord, why is this man blind? Is it because of his sins or the sins of his parents? And Jesus says, no, it's not because of his sins or the sins of his parents. It's so that the works of God might be made manifest in him. Then Jesus says, I am the light of the world. I must work the works of him who sent me while it is yet day. And then Jesus goes on to heal the man. But Jesus makes this profound statement in John 9 verse 5. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world. Now, none of us deny that Jesus is the light of the world. Again, confirming John 1 verse 4. In him is life, and his life is the light of the world. Jesus is the light of the world. But then in Matthew 5 verse 13 and 14, Jesus is speaking to his same disciples on what we call the Sermon on the Mount. And he says to them, you are the salt of the earth. If salt has lost its taste, it's thenceforth good for nothing but to be cast out and trodden under foot of men. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hid. Then he goes on to say, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. But Matthew 5 verse 14, Jesus says, you are the light of the world. Now, John 9 verse 5 and Matthew 5:14 seems contradictory because Jesus said, I am the light of the world, but then he says to his disciples, you are the light of the world. Now, we know that's not contradictory. Jesus is not confused. Jesus is saying, if I am the light of the world and you are the light of the world, you are to be Jesus to the world. In fact, Jesus prayed that in his prayer in John 17 verse 8, and he says, as my Father sent me, I now send you. As the Father sent Jesus to be the light of the world, we have now been sent to be the light of the world. And in John 20 verse 21, Jesus said as much to his disciples, as the Father sent me, I now have sent you. So we are to be Jesus to the world. Now, we can't be an authentic witness to the life of Christ if we are not being authentic in our relationship with God, authentic with ourselves, stop bluffing ourselves, be real and honest with ourselves, and authentic with people around us. Now, I don't think any of us will stand on a street corner and say to people, why don't you all be followers of me as I am of Christ? Or we walk into a supermarket, and as we're standing in the queue, we tap someone on the shoulder and say, excuse me, sir, would you like to see God? Would you look at me? Or maybe go up to someone and say, would you like to touch God? Why don't you touch me? We probably won't do that. But when we are saying to people, I am a Christian, I am a Christ one, that's in fact what we are saying to people. Why don't you look at my life and follow me as I follow Christ? Because our lives speak much louder than our words. And in this world that's so full of pretense and artificiality, the world is hungry to see people that are authentically living out the dynamic, real life of Jesus Christ. Let's be authentic in our relationship with God, with one another, and with ourselves, so that we can be authentic witnesses to the love of God. And as it said in Matthew 5, let your light so shine before men that they might see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. May our lives be so authentic that they would glorify God who is in heaven, and people will be attracted to the authentic life of Christ in us.